Hi everyone, and hope you've been sticking with me pretty well so far. Now we're going to extrude and get the back of the head done. So this is going to be quite a little procedure first. We're going to turn off our turbo smooth for a second. And we're going to go to our side view here. And we're going to start extruding out these two vertices up here. Sorry, these two edges, up here. That I have selected right there. Hopefully you got the two same selected. And we're going to extrude about as many times as we need to. So let's try and extrude once, two, get to the hairline, 3, mid-ear, 4, 5, 6, let's do 7. So let's do some adjustments here. And what I'm going to do is, our brow is really strong here, but it kind of pushes back here. Our skin kind of softens up here. So that's what we're going to do. We're going to angle this. And we're just going to try and soften up our shape. Remember, it's a lot about softening up these shapes as we go along. They start off harsh, but we start trying to soften them up so they look like they're all a part of the same object, right? So let's build these up. I'm actually going to push all these up just a little bit. And you can do the same thing with yours, or you can adjust yours a little differently. And basically, in my side view, I just want to make sure that everything looks like it's kind of angling a little bit, at least in this part. What we're doing is we're forming pretty much the back of the head here. And this will actually go much lower. We'll put this down to about here. And then start making sure that kind of gets more up as we go. So you can see we're covering actually a lot with these vertexes here. That's because as soon as it softens up, like, we want this to be really rounded, right? So remember, the closer the vertices are together, the more detailed you want the object to be. The further apart they are, then that means the softer the object will be when we add our mesh smooth and turbo smooth. And that's exactly what we want. We want this shape actually being pretty soft. So we can actually separate these out pretty far, because mesh smooth and turbo smooth will make this a lot smoother. So you can see I can just, even though this is like extremely far apart, I'm just trying to make sure it's soft here as possible. Once we add turbo smooth or mesh smooth, this will actually come out really soft. So now that we did the front view with that, we need to go to our side view, make sure these look good. And basically what we want to do is make sure everything kind of, pops out this far, right? So we want our center polygons here to pop out the furthest, to get this little bulge in the head. So something like that. And then we try and make sure everything kind of matches a little bit. So I'm just bulging these out just a little bit. And then what I'm going to need to do is these polygons need to be considered, these vertexes here need to be considered the back of the head, right? So right down the middle. So I take them and I place them right down the center. I scale them inwards so that they go flat, scale them to X, and I make sure these polygons all line up. Let me zoom in for you. So I'm just making sure that all these vertexes line up like that. So then I go row by row. I can push F3 on my keyboard here, and I start playing around with these to make sure that from the top view, they're actually pretty soft and together. So what I do is I push this here. This will be 2. This will be 3. This will be 4. And I'm trying to get this nice rounded shape, so this is kind of popping out a bit. So now, if I look at this view, we should get a nice wraparound. And if I hold the polygons and I put them all to the same right smoothing group, we get a nice wraparound of that head. So that actually looks pretty good. Yeah, everything looks pretty good there. We can do more adjustments as we build out this character a little bit more, but I think so far that actually looks really, really good. So what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to extrude the next rows the same way. So I'm going to go to this rows here, these two. I'm going to go to my left view. I'm going to extrude them the same, and I'm actually going to rotate these. I'll start with adjusting the first row so I don't have to do too much adjustments afterwards. So you can see I just did this small curve here, like that. And I'm just going to Extrude these a little back, a little bit of rotation. And 7. So same amount of vertexes pulled back. Everything is pretty much identically the same. I make sure this part's flat completely. I flatten it out. And I put it down the middle. And then I grab the rest of the edges like here. And what I want to do is I want to make sure these are pretty much like flowing at the back of the head. So they're flowing to the front of our head. So I'm just going to make sure that they line up with our previous vertexes. And that it looks like they're floating, they're moving forward. Because ideally what we want for this part is to make sure that they're all flowing towards the front of the head. Like water. So remember that these edges, polygons in the back, sorry, I should say, they need to rotate all over the head to the front of the head to get to here. And then these polygons need to make sure that they're able to flow forward as well to kind of match that curvy hairline going forward. So that's why we do that. That's why we're kind of scaling them and adjusting them, making sure everything kind of looks really good. You know, making sure everything lines up correctly. So now I'm going to do my collapses again. I'm going to grab these. Collapse. Collapse. Or you can weld. I mean, if you're good with welding, what you can do is you can grab all these. So instead of collapsing, I grab these 8 vertices here. And I'm on edit poly mode. So while in edit poly mode, I just go to weld. And I can change this weld number all the way up until it welds what I want it to weld. So you can see it actually welded all these polygons together. This is previewing. So it's preview showing that all these will weld together just fine without welding into one another. If I click the plus sign or the check mark sign, you can see it all welded all correctly. And now I can just go to my front view and start adjusting my front view. So I want this to be nice and curved along the head as well. So I'm going to make sure that this curves correctly. And I kind of want this to be pretty, pretty much curved correctly. And what I mean that is like, remember when I was talking about water flowing? We pretty much want that water flowing effect with these vertexes. So I grab these vertexes and I make sure it looks like water's flowing, right? And that's an important lesson to kind of to try and maintain and keep in your head. The water flowing method has always been my favorite to think about because the more I thought about water flowing, the easier it was to get the actual shape of the model looking correct. Everyone has different ways of thinking about it, but if you'd like the different way, then I can't fault you for that if it works. But my way is the water flowing technique. So you can see now we should have, if we look at the top, we have this nice hole here. Everything looks good all around our mesh. Everything looks really soft. And then we continue with that, and we do the next step of extrusions from the front of our head. The last bit, which will be these 3 vertexes going up, 3 edges, sorry, 3 edges. And what you should get is while you're rotating it to make sure it matches up, make sure it still curves forward a bit, right? So we still want this nice curve. And if you need to adjust your vertexes, don't be afraid. If it gets you a nice shape to your head, don't be afraid to adjust all the vertexes, including the ones that you've already made beforehand. So I'll create this shape here. I could see that I probably want some slight scaling here, just to flatten it out just a little bit more. So that looks okay. So then I grab my 3 edges again after I'm done doing my adjustments to the first extrusion, and I'm going to keep this going by doing a rotation here, and I'll do 3, and I'll do 4. And then I'll adjust my vertexes until they match where I want to. So I see maybe if I want this one here, this vertex should be closer here. This one will be closer here. And I'm going to try and keep that curve going, like I said, just a little bit forward. So these are going just a little bit forward, a little bit forward. something like that. So we're just worrying about the front part of the head right now, and we're just going to space these out a little bit. So we're just bringing these ones closer. But you can see the closer we're bringing these ones, you can see the difference between the front vertexes and the back vertexes there. Like these ones here are all scrunched up together. We don't want that. So I'm going to weld all these together. I'm going to go to weld mode, weld options. Make sure the number's high enough so these all collapse into themselves. Click the check mark. You can see they all welded correctly. Now I'm going to go to my front view. And I'm going to make sure these get a little bit more spacing so I create a nice like oval shape. And make sure that they match up to the actual drawing as well. So right now, what I should see, definitely with more spacing in it, is something like this. And then I go here and start adjusting this. So with the curving forward, I want to make sure I get that full on curve. So I'm pretty much just curving these slightly forward. And then you'll see, if we add our smoothing group, that everything comes together, pretty well. We still got some adjustments to do. It's never going to be perfect on your first try. Just be sure to do your adjustments and then add in your smoothing group afterwards and you'll be fine. So I got just a few more tweaks to do. Maybe I'll just push a little bit of this more forward. If I go to my left view, I may want to consider just, pushing these all just like slightly more forward. But now you see we got more space here, so I'm going to try and close the gap of space. I'm going to try and make these as even as possible away from each other. And I see the space here looks pretty good. And I got my brow here, that looks good. That definitely looks better already, so I'm not going to worry too much about it. As we start finishing off our shape and getting everything together, that's when I can start really tweaking and going at this thing. So you're going to notice that we have this back of the head here, right? So that's our next step. And what we're going to do for this step is, because a lot of people tend to mess up the back of the head, they tend to make a nice big triangle here that doesn't work well, or a couple other things. What we're going to do is we're going to go to polygon, and we're going to go create polygon mode. Okay. So we're in edit polygon mode, and we're going to create a polygon. I'm going to go to my edit geometry menu here, and I'm going to create 1, 2, 3. So I am going to create a triangle here. I clicked 1, 2, 3, and then a fourth time on the last vertex to create that. And this one I create 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And now we have this shape, right? And obviously this shape isn't going to work for us. Even if I smooth it out correctly, you're going to see that in my render, especially, that it's kind of flat-ish over here. So what we need to do is we're going to need to start putting a cut in these. So basically what we're going to do is we're just going to cut twice, because cutting, you'll see, watch this. If I grab these, so I grab this, and then I'm going to go to my cut tool. So I'm in edit polygon mode. I'm in cut. I cut from here, here, to here. So you're going to say, well, why did I cut 2 polygons? You can see that there's a polygon here that I didn't cut. Well, this triangle just turned into a quad from me not cutting it, because I only cut here and here. This is actually now a polygon. It's not a bad thing to have on your model. And now I can modify this shape like this. And now you can see I got a nice quad that makes the water flow again from here to here, from here to here. No crashing. And it works out just perfectly for us. And it doesn't look bad at all for the low poly model. And we put Turbo Smooth on. It looks like a really, really nice head. You can see that head came together really well. So that's why we do those cuts. So now we're gonna try and move this along a little bit faster, and we're gonna work along the actual side of the cheek here. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna grab these 2 edges here, and we're gonna put this down here. We're gonna hold Shift. We're gonna pull these down once. We're gonna do it twice. So you can see what we're doing. We're trying to line up. We've got 1 flow, 2 flow, and now we're going to try for, 3 flow. And then we're going to extrude one more time after that. We're going to go for 4. And so after we're done the 4, let's line this up a little bit. So in my left view, it doesn't look too bad. I'm going to obviously do some adjustments though. I want to make sure this flows in kind of in front of my ear just a little bit. Maybe something like that. I want to make sure this lines up like this. I could see like, I'm creating a slight curve here. We're going to create more of a chin afterwards, so don't worry too much about the chin, like overlapping the chin. I'm just worried about this. So that looks okay from that view. I go to my front view. You can see it's like way off here. So I'm just going to grab all those vertexes I created and I'm just going to rotate them. So now I'm just going to, as usual, what I like to do first is kind of place the last edge I extruded in kind of a rough location. And then the rest I kind of push just to smooth in this kind of shape in. Like that. And that way I know like kind of decently what shape I'm building. Now it's not going to be perfect, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to make sure that I grab these edges here. And then I'm going to try and think about my extrusions to get the entire chin done. So I did 1, 2, 3, 4 times. And I might do, let's see, 1, 2, 4, maybe I'm thinking about 6. Now, we want the extrusions here to be quite large because we also have a lot to match up with down here. So if we go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. One moment. So I'm going to go to this view here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. I scale in on the X to make sure that these can line up together. Go to my left view. Remember what I like to do? I like to bring my edges here. My last edge is extruded, or the ones that are connecting both sides of the face. I kind of line up as best as possible to the way I want them. And let's say this will be the chin here. So I grab the next 3. So I grab the next 3 vertexes here. I'll just scale them. And then I'll adjust them. Remember that the front of the face is a lot flatter, so I put these pretty darn close. And then I'll go to my next step. Like that. And then I'll go to the next one. Like that. And then I'll pop this one here. And maybe I'll move this one slightly back just to give it a little bit more room. Something like that. There we go. And you can see like by adding that, we got this nice little chin strap forming, right? So think about it like a chin strap. When people develop chin straps for the military and stuff like that, this is kind of how they work. They develop this part first before thinking about anywhere else. So now we got a kind of nice rounded chin going around everything. So now we need to start connecting this chin to everything else. So ideally what you should do is just start organizing how this looks. I'm thinking about thinning it out a bit. We can always adjust that afterwards depending on how we need it to look. But I'm just going to do some slight adjustments like this just to make sure everything kind of like lines up the way I like it. And so I'm looking here. This looks pretty good. Now what I might do is I might space this out a little bit further. I might bring this a little bit more outwards. So basically your front view should be like sort of equivalent to this. Now we can scale it in afterwards to make a thinner face, of course. We can do lots of changes like that. So don't panic too much about the actual final look of what you're getting. Just make sure that you get the actual shape of everything coming together pretty well. And I can see that my chin, there's some parts I need to push in a bit to get the shape that I want. So if I go Alt-X on my keyboard, you can see my chin doesn't really match up with like the sharpness of my character's chin in the reference. So I just do some slight adjustments here just to make sure that everything kind of lines up the way I want it to. So I push it up, push it up. Don't forget we can use a scale tool and everything like that to adjust everything. Always check your different views too. So if I want, this will be my left view, this is my front view. This is my perspective. I can kind of see how everything's playing out here. And I can see that the left view and my side view don't really match up entirely 100%, but I'm just kind of going like half and half between both just to kind of get, the best of both worlds here. So if I go to my front view, I can see this lines up okay. And I'm just doing some adjustments, like I said. Always good to go back and do adjustments. Even I got to do adjustments all the time to get the final shape of what I'm looking for. And see here, look how sharp my chin is now compared to just a second ago. So now, if I'm going to go to rendering, I'm going to change my render environment so I can see it a little bit more clear. I go here. You can see that I got a nice sharper chin going on there, which is looking pretty okay to me. I'm also going to change the skin tone of this. I'm going to make a material, standard material. And just like I did last time on my other model, I'm going to create a basic skin tone. Assign it to both sides of my model. And I'll do self-illumination, let's say 10. Just to make it a little bit softer looking. And you can see the look I'm getting here. And then I'll change these eyeballs to, it could be just a regular white. Like that. And it's not looking too bad, right? So, this model's looking pretty good, I think. I'm going to change my environment to be a little bit darker. Not black, but dark. Maybe a little bit of color in there too. Excuse me. There you go. Perfect. Excuse me again. So, just so we started building our chin. We have our chin now. So I'm looking at this chin. This chin looks good. I'm just going to change the wireframe color so you guys can see it clear. So with the chin looking good the way you want and doing your adjustments to your front and side views, I still have some adjustments I want to do to make it a little bit softer. Like this, like that. So basically what I'm doing, I was doing adjustments. Remember the water flowing technique? Water flowing. I'm just making sure the water flows nice into itself. So something like that. There you go. That looks really good. So now next step afterwards is we're going to start attaching our chin to our mouth. Okay. So chin to the mouth is actually pretty difficult. A lot of people mess this up. So that's why I kind of like getting it done first. And the easiest way to do it is I'm going to push Alt-X to un-X-ray this. I'll do my adjustments to my chin here. There you go. And what I like to do is actually create these polygons myself. So I go to Polygon, and I go to Create. Let's go down to Edit Geometry, Create. And remember, 5 clicks. Bottom right, upper left, bottom left, and click again to create that polygon. Now we're going to create 1, 2, 3, and 4 polygons here. Now I know some people tend to freak out when we do this. It's because I know that there is a shape that pushes in here slightly, and we will get that done. That's something we can do with adding more edge detail. So you can see now we have a part that actually connects to the lips, and basically we gotta move to the next step now, and we're gonna try and fill in this detail first before we get anywhere else, because we have a lot of this detail. We kind of want to just fill in all this cheeks until before we get started on the nose and the mouth and the ears. So basically, as simple as it is, just use polygon create mode. Remember, we should use the bottom right first. And you gotta click 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Be sure to practice with the create polygon mode. I know sometimes it can be pretty daunting, but a lot of practice goes a long way. Basically, I'm going to create 3 polygons here. So after you're done creating those 3 polygons, create a triangle out of this cheek. And then 4 polygons plus the triangle, and then 5. So basically this leaves us with a small gap, which we will fix for the mouth, but we need to adjust these vertexes first and make sure they look good. So please do so. Go through your model, make sure these vertexes look good. You can see my cheek is kind of pushed in over here. So I take a look at why that is the case, and I see that this pokes out, but this part of the cheek doesn't. So I just adjust it just to make sure that my model looks soft all around. And now I see that these vertices in the cheek might be a little too close to each other. So I'm going to try and smooth them out by pushing them further apart. Remember, the further apart vertices are, the smoother models normally are. So I do my adjustments. You can see how much our cheek puffs out. So it's fine if you have a character whose cheeks really puff out like that. But for me, my character's cheeks really don't puff out that much. So I'm going to actually bring them in slightly and push them slightly back. Like that. That looks a lot better already. So be sure to rotate around your model quite often just to check if there's any issues. Now we still have some of the model to build out down here. So I understand that we still need some tweaking to do. But also at the same time, I can look at the front of the face perfectly straight on right here. And I can see I got a nice shape. There might be still some adjustments I need to make. Because of course, in my reference, it does look slightly matched up. But at the same time, her chin is sharper. And easily enough, I just grab some vertexes, push them in a bit, scale them, adjust them a bit. And so this requires a lot of tweaking. So before you get on your next step, I'm going to create another video after this one. Finish this step off first, and then we're going to move on to actually finishing off the cheek and finishing off the mouth by adding the final details there. So let's get going forward. See you in the next video.